Hello everyone, Electra Ray here, and I am making this video to rank all the icons in the game in terms of gameplay. I will not go over individual abilities in detail unless they are key to describe my reasoning behind why I think the icons should be at the given rank. The ranks will go from A through C, as there is really not a lot of power discrepancy between them, at least in my opinion. Now, these are my first impressions after trying out all of them in different scenarios, but feel free to disagree, as some things could be more valuable to you as a player than it is for me. At the end of the day, everything here works well, and they all will get you through the game regardless of what icon or abilities you end up choosing. Alright, so without further ado, let's get started. First, I wanted to give Ifrit an honorable mention because while not exactly your standard icon, it does have a few abilities under its name, namely Will of the Wikes or Will of the Weeks, I'm not entirely sure how you say that, and Ignition, both of which you should not sleep on, especially in early game. Ignition does massive amounts of damage, as well as crowd control. You can just take entire rooms of mobs for a ride before hitting them with a heavy blow at the end. While Will of the Wikes can shred enemies' will if you are a melee type player. I do not think it is fair to give Ifrit a rank due to the fact that its kit is kind of built into Clive himself. But for the abilities that it does have, I would say Ifrit is a solid B rank. Next up is the Phoenix. Phoenix is kind of a jack of all trades, but master of none. It's got the best cap closer in the game, in my opinion, with Phoenix Shift. It has a projectile only parry and range moves with Heat Wave, which is very unique actually, and its ultimate can do a fair good amount of AoE damage as well as healing. Phoenix is great for those that do not want to spice the game up and just want to have, a chill good time with easy to understand abilities that will be good enough to get you through the entire game. Thus, I give the Phoenix a B rank, right down the middle. Garuda abilities hit for very small amounts of damage, but they're all about depleting will gauge on enemies. It is extremely useful when going against bosses to push phases and get free damage in quicker. Her strong points, however, is her deadly embrace, which can pull enemies in, or when will gauge reaches half, she's able to bring them down and get some free hits in. Additionally, when used outside of those scenarios, it does a little hop, which can give you enough air to use enhanced aerial drops, moves like Upheaval. In my opinion, Garuda is a must in any builds, even if you do not use any of her abilities. She definitely should be there for Deadly Embrace, due to the nature of how easy it makes staggering enemies. I will give Garuda an A rank for that alone. Next is Ramuh. Ramuh is all about AoE damage. Everything in his arsenal is about hitting multiple targets or single targets in multiple places. Unfortunately, some of his counterparts do a better job at dealing damage at times, so Ramuh kinda takes a backseat sometimes. One ability worth mentioning though is Lightning Rod. If the enemy is not mobile, you can do some serious damage and wheel damage if you team it up with something like Will the Wikes, which hits very quickly. Otherwise, even its ultimate feels kind of a letdown, especially when compared to some of the other entries I will be talking about next. As such, Ramuh is my first C rank, unfortunately. Next up is our big boy Titan. Titan does huge damage and also strong time parries. However, due to the fact that some of his abilities are required to charge in order to perform properly, at least on the ground anyway, it means that they come out with a slight delay and can feel a little bit lackluster when compared to other abilities in the game that also do intense amounts of damage but come out like basically instantly. Its parry gameplay is good at early game, but can become really hard to pull off on later bosses because they have like 50 AoEs on the ground while they're attacking, so parrying those won't really do you much. You just gotta dodge. As such, I think Titan goes into the C tier for me, although I would pick him over Ramuh any day of the week. Next is Bahamut. Now before I go into Bahamut, I do have to mention that the Bahamut fight was my favorite in the game, and Dion is one of my favorite characters in the entire game. But that is neither here nor there, so let's talk about what this badass dragon can do. First of all, I'm not a huge fan of the Bahamut Wings of Light. I get how it is meant to be used. It's supposed to be used during downtime when the bosses start spamming AoE abilities that you're supposed to be dodging. But it is so situational that it kind of loses flavor for me. However, in terms of abilities, Giga Flare is probably the best ultimate in the entire game, period. And some of its other abilities make it really easy to deplete enemy wheel gauges in basically every situation. Taking all these facts into consideration, I will give Bahamut a very, very strong A. Shiva is up next, and this one is a bit hard for me to decide. Her kit is definitely like Garuda, where it is more about doing will gauge damage than just raw damage. Most notably, her ultimate is insane for will gauge depletion. It completely eats up a chunk of it immediately, so if you need burst will gauge damage or just AoE damage, this ability is exactly what you're looking for. Her cold snap is also really powerful, allowing you to freeze any enemy, even the hardest bosses, so you get free damage if you time your dodges, basically. Because of that, I will give her an A rank, even though some of her abilities can be a bit situational, but I think she deserves it. And last but not least, we have our edgy dark horse riding Odin. On the surface, Odin seems a bit weak because while its abilities look super flashy and cool, they do very little damage or will gauge damage compared to other things we have seen before. Hell, Rift Slip does not even do damage, it just freezes time for a second. However, Odin's gameplay is all about using these abilities to build up Sentetsuken meter and then dishing it out to deal probably the highest amount of damage in the game on a single hit. Due to the high level of complexity behind Odin in comparison to other icons, I feel like a lot of players will skip him very quickly after trying him out. Those that do use Odin, however, you just know they're in for the big damage numbers, and it becomes a game of building up meter for that big slash finisher. Downsides to Odin is that you must have him equipped. His abilities on their own are extremely lackluster. But with that said, I will still give Odin a well-deserved A rank due to how good it can be when used properly. So that's it for my tier list. Unfortunately, this game lacks a lot of those amazing RPG elements of making your character unique by putting stat points and gear into the gameplay style that you like. So building your Clyde by using certain ability combinations is the closest thing you can get to that in this game. If you like how Ramuh plays, for example, then you're free to go crazy with it and build your gameplay around it. Meaning, regardless of what I think and say about the icons here, it does not mean anything for you as a player. If you think Titan is the best icon in the game, then it just means the game did a good job at making it balanced enough so players can choose whatever they wish. With that said, let me know what your build is like. This is Electra Array. Peace out.